freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your DFS preview for this week's American Express. Joining me to break it all down, Nejad is here. Sia, hello.
Hello, everyone. Quick shout out to this show. You know, we do this on Monday, so some of our stuff might get lost in the shuffle as the days go by, but you two were really big on Taylor Montgomery, Hayden Buckley. We as a group spent a lot of time on Siwoo Kim last week on our Monday DFS show, so props to the First Cut. I thought we did a good job last week.
We had it peppered. We certainly had it peppered. I drafted a lot of Hayden Buckley, a lot of Taylor Montgomery in my season-long fantasy leagues, and I won 7 of my 9 matchups last week. So
wow.
Yeah, no kidding. Hope we can keep that going. Greg DuCharme is here. Greg, hey, dude.
Hey, dudes. I'm really excited this week to keep up the hot streak, if you will. Unfortunately, we weren't on Siwoo until, the tournament began. But hopefully this week we get the winner right from the get-go, right from Monday night. So I'm really looking forward to it.
I had that Hayden Buckley 95-1 ticket. I just ripped it in half, used it to wipe my tears away, dabbed each eye, and then now I'm ready to move on. I'm ready for
the odds only matter if you win, Rick.
Isn't that amazing how that works? Only matters.
Amazing.
The American Express, the worst named tournament on the entire schedule. Here it is. We finally made it. And this is not your normal event because we are in course rotation season. 8 different courses in play over the next 3 weeks, 3 of them in play this week. Before we get into the characters and traits and differences and similarities between these golf courses, this does change the strategy a little bit. The way it's going to work is that everybody's going to play 1 round at each of the 3 golf courses. There will be a 54, hear me again, 54 hole cut, and they will all return to play the host course, the stadium course on Sunday. So a little bit of strategy differences for this week.
Yeah, it's going to be really unique. I mean, it's also unique to have, is this the only one where we have a 54 hole cut? There's
Pebble.
a few of them, right?
Pebble.
Okay, there we go. In a couple weeks. So yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. It's kind of nice maybe to not have a Friday cut sweat. You get to kind of extend it to Saturday, but it's unique in so many different ways. Obviously 3 different courses that are kind of similar, but hazards different on each one. I suppose you could say one playing probably easier than the other 2, or well easier than the other 2, but weather comes into play a little bit. So it's just one of those things. I almost feel like there's probably a little bit more luck involved just circumstantially when it comes to a tournament like this. With that said, there are a lot of similarities across the 3. So I think, we do have a decent amount of information. Unfortunately, we don't have ShotLink other than having it at the stadium course. So, that's kind of annoying, but we certainly have a lot to go on. Personally, I think the course rotation thing is pretty annoying, but whatever. We get a few weeks of it and then it's gone essentially.
I think that Sia kind of getting to why so many long shots have won here. It's just weird. There's a lot of luck involved. Hudson Swafford was 100-1. Adam Long was like 500-1 when he won this thing. Andrew Landry, I think, was like 200-1 when he won this. So, it does kind of breed a little bit of chaos, Greg. And you've got 3 courses. It's desert golf. So we'll go through the 3 courses here. So the stadium course, you might see this listed as PGA West, the stadium. You might see it listed as Pete Dye Stadium course. That's one. That's the host course. We'll get 2 rounds there. Then you have the Nicklaus Tournament course, and then La Quinta. La Quinta is the one that generally plays the easiest.
Yes, and all 3 are easy when it comes to the PGA Tour. Last year, they were all outside the top 37 in difficulty out of 50 golf courses on the PGA Tour. So they definitely rate on the easy side. And I think a big factor in that is they're all par 72 and they're all under 7,200 yards, between 7 and 7,200 yards. So when you have that kind of yardage, which is short, regardless of par, you add par 72 to the mix and you add the altitude. Typically you get really nice weather conditions. It's kind of Palm Springs are kind of like dome golf. if you will. Maybe the fans blowing a little bit here and there, but for the most part, the weather's pretty good. So you don't have to worry about a draw. You don't have to worry about tee times. I think all that stuff is kind of luck of the draw if one course, and it's happened in the past where one day, one course played extremely difficult, and there was definitely a good side of the draw, but I think it's really difficult, really challenging to predict. So I agree with the sentiment that there's a little bit of luck. But really when it comes to these long shots and everybody really being in play, I think a lot of that has to do with the yardage of the golf course, the scoreable nature of the par fives, and at the same time, they're challenging golf courses. So if you're off your game, you can really struggle. But if you're feeling it and you're playing some good golf, you can make a ton of birdies. And that's really where the setup kind of gets a little unique.
Very nice time of year to play golf in Palm Springs. It'll be like mid 60s all week long, not a lot of wind. Go out there and get it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're up here in the Northeast, there's some domes, indoor dome driving ranges where you're hitting into a net, but it's a little farther away. They may have a fan on in the ceiling to keep the little airflow, and they're going to keep it a little cooler. And that's what you're going to get in Palm Springs. It's like a dome with a little sunshine. So yeah, it's a good time of year to play golf there.
Stadium course last year, the most difficult, though not difficult, played 1.4 strokes under par. The Nicklaus Tournament course played 1.7 under par. La Quinta played 2 strokes under par. So that was how everything shook out last year. What we'll do is we will roll tier by tier through this board, find the best, potentially the worst options. I will say before we do that, the one and done link for you, the fans, is now live. There's a link in the description. Get your vote in so that you can get your golfer for this week and hopefully earn whatever's first place is, 1.4, 1.5 million bucks, something like that. And you can add that to your total and try to track down Mark and Kyle. We're going to hit the cheat sheet, but first we'll take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. Here it is. My website, rickrungood.com. See ya. 5 of them. 5 golfers over 10K. John Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, Tony Finau, Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele. Let's be real. This is a pretty strong field. 5 of the top 7. Add in a couple more of our favorites, and this is looking better than any American Express / Desert Classic / Humana Challenge / Career Builder / whatever else that I can remember.
As much as I like the 8 and 9K range, like I have to admit that there is so much win equity in this top 5 here. And it's really hard to parse through who I like better than the other because they're all so elite. I mean, I think Xander is an open question because of the back injury. For me, I'm going to play Xander just like, and I'm not saying I'm right or wrong or that I was previously right or wrong, but I'm going to play Xander just like I played Will Zalatoris, which means I'm not going to play him. If somebody wants to play him, I totally get it. But, my take on that is he clearly had a back injury, and I don't know what he's done between that point in time and the point in time that he's going to tee it up on Thursday. And for me, it'd be one thing if Xander was like the class of the field and he was going up against a bunch of, I don't know, Sam Burns's, Brian Harmon's, and Sahith Theegala's, but that's not the case here. So I'm going to go ahead and fade Xander unless his ownership is extremely low, which I seriously doubt. Go ahead.
Let me just throw a little in update out here on Xander. So obviously, plays the Tournament of Champions. The back was a question mark leading into it. It actually led Mark Immelman to secretly change his one and done selection, which we will not let him forget. He ends up withdrawing from that event. There was a report from Todd Lewis just a couple days ago. In the meantime, Xander has had tests on his back. He has had treatment on the back and is apparently, obviously, feeling good enough to go this week. I don't know what that means to you, but that's the latest.
Wait, who was the report from?
I think it was Todd Lewis for the Golf Channel, wasn't it?
Oh, I thought you said Tom Lewis, the golfer. And I was like, why? Is he a reporter now? I haven't seen him.
If you're getting breaking news from Tom Lewis, we're in big trouble.
Fair enough. All right. So the guys I like up here, I mean, John Rahm, the first thing I think of with him is, of course, muttering to himself and just hating the fact that this is a putting contest. But last I checked, John Rahm was pretty terrific with the putter, as we see up here on rickrungood.com. I hope you guys are all watching. Guys and girls are watching us on YouTube hit the like button if you would. But this putter is pretty amazing, and he's playing better than anybody in the world, in my opinion. I don't think that's a really controversial statement. Do I want to take him here necessarily? Not necessarily on like an easier layout, but we're talking about the 10K range. The two guys I like the best are Tony Finau and Patrick Cantlay, to be honest with you. But between Rahm and Cantlay, I think I could go either way. I love Tony Finau scoring. Cantlay, the only issue I have with him is as we're about to see here, the approach play's been, I guess, a little sketchy. But again, it's Patrick Cantlay. I'm not super worried about it. Cantlay's history here, of course, is great. The opportunities he creates for himself are really great. So I like those three. Cantlay, probably my favorite.
So Jon Rahm, Greg, has won thrice, as they say, in his last 5 starts worldwide, obviously including the Century Tournament of Champions. You've got Tony Finau with a couple wins in the bag as of late. Patrick Cantlay, who's been amazing here in Palm Springs. I mean, there's just a lot happening in the 10K range. When you get 5 of the top 7 players in the world, that's going to happen, but we got to start making some decisions.
Yes, we do. At some point, we have to make some decisions here. And I mean, Scotty Scheffler isn't even mentioned here. All he does is contend, right? He just contends every week. His name is on top of the leaderboard or near it every week at some point. So Scotty is definitely a viable option as well. And I think this is an extremely difficult area to parse through. So if you're looking at Jon Rahm and you're thinking, well, maybe I should go a different direction, what would the reason be? Well, it has nothing to do with his history here because it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And we know last year the putter kind of let him down starting with this event. But that has definitely reemerged. So if you're going to look for a reason to get away from Jon Rahm, it's maybe because he lost almost 3 strokes approaching the green at the Century Tournament of Champions. Now, he won that event. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. But I really like approach play here. I think it's a great metric to look at. It is just about every week. But when you start getting into a birdie fest, I really hone in on approach play and putting. And there'll be some other events in this West Coast swing where I vary from that a little bit. Riviera and Torrey tend to lend themselves to a little more short game, maybe a little more driving ability, things like that. So I think you're definitely safe to play Jon Rahm. The reason you might not is, I mean, let's be honest. It would be boredom. You don't want to play him every week, or you're worried that everybody's going to play him. And that's not really a great basis for making decisions. Scotty Scheffler, on the other hand, there may be a real legitimate worry with the flat stick. But what do we see? Well, he gains nearly 3 strokes putting at the Century Tournament of Champions. So is that better? It's up in the air. But I know this. He contends every week, so I'm fine with playing him. Sia did a nice job talking about Tony Finau. He feels like he's ready to go on another run, and I love that aspect. So Xander's the odd man out here. I'm with you. I'm not going to play Xander. I love the top 4. I love. So what I'm going to do with the top 4 is I'm going to set the rest of my lineup, and I'm going to see what I have left, and I'm going to make a decision based on simply pricing. How do I leave a couple bucks on the table? And my order is probably, I think it's best to just rank these guys. And I think the order is Rahm, Cantlay, Scheffler, Finau, which is hard to do. It's hard to put Tony Finau
in the 4 spots. Tough.
Yeah, it's hard to do. But you got to make some choices somehow. It just feels like the perfect event for Patrick Cantlay, and that's why I think he moves up to the 2-hole. He always plays well here. It's a pro-am. Pace of play is a little slower. That's not a problem for Patrick Cantlay at all. It's not going to be a problem for any of them, but it just feels very comfortable for him. And I think then the last piece I'll add on Cantlay, which is why he's in the 2-hole for me, is the ability to get scorching hot with the putter. And that ability for him is better than anybody else in this field. His ceiling with the flat stick is higher than anybody else here. And I included Denny McCarthy in that, right? This is, he can just absolutely go on a tear. And I think there's a lot of value with him being at 10-1.
Statistically, last 36 rounds, Jon Rahm, number 1, 2.3 strokes gained per round. Tony Finau, 2, that's 2.1. Then Xander, obviously, though, dealing with some lingering back concerns. Taylor Montgomery, number 4. Then Patrick Cantlay is number 5. Scotty Scheffler shows up 8th on that list. Those are the 5 guys over 10K. So they're all within the top 8 of strokes gained in the last 36, if you care about that. And then you can kind of figure out which order that you want to put them in. The 9s are yoked. I love the 9s. Sung Jae Im, 9,800. Will Zalatoris, 96. Tom Kim, 30% owned, highest guy on the slate last week, missed the cut, $9,500. Sam Burns, 94. Brian Harmon, 93. Siwoo, 92. Cam Young, 91. And then Aaron Wise at a flat 9,000. So Sia, the 2 highest owned golfers on the slate last week, Tom Kim, Sung Jae Im, both missed the cut, both in the $9,000 range. They are surrounded by some interesting options, like our champion from last week, like a couple of young, popular guys in Cam Young and Aaron Wise. What is going to happen with this 9K range in terms of public perception and the way these guys get rolled out?
That's a really good question. And I think people are going to go right back to Sung Jae Im and Tom Kim, to be honest with you. I don't really see a true reason to get away from them. I think you can make the argument against Sung Jae because if you wanted to, because the approach play has been, I suppose, a little sketchy over the last few tournaments. We saw how much he lost at the CJ Cup, which, of course, was a long time ago, but then a pretty horrific time at the Sony Open from a ball striking standpoint. I mean, this kind of plays into the whole strokes gained marriage narrative that I introduced a couple of weeks ago before the Century. I mean, that could be an issue here.
Yeah, I know that guy who won last week, who just got married, is really, really going into your narrative so well.
Well, listen, Rick, we know that it's a 7-year itch, but sometimes it's a 7-day itch, and then things just start tumbling down. So I really think this is reflective of the vows here.
Yeah,
I'm joking, of course. Listen, I'm joking, but no, in all seriousness, like the approach play is a little sketchy. If you wanted to make an argument against them, I'm not going to make that argument. I like Sung Jae and Tom Kim quite a bit, and if I think I'm getting an ownership discount, all the better. The problem is I don't think I am, because I think a lot you can make more arguments against everybody else in the 9K range easier than you can against those 2 guys. So, I mean, for me, the guys I like the most would probably be Tom Kim, Sung Jae Im, and Siwoo Kim, to be honest with you. And part of the reason is like the approach play. Sung Jae a little checkered, but the other 2 can get red hot on approach. They can get hot with the putter. And I don't have as many questions with those 3 as I do some of the other people in this range.
The 2 different styles of missed cuts last week, Greg, where Sung Jae loses nearly 4 strokes in the ball striking categories, and he's kind of been cooling with the putter anyway. And then Tom Kim, who was horrendous. He lost nearly 7 strokes putting, the worst putting performance of his career, one of the worst of the season, most of it coming on Thursday, but he was the 12th best ball striker in the field over the first 2 rounds. So they feel like very different kind of miscuts.
Yes, they do. And we've talked about this on this show a lot regarding Sung Jae. Sung Jae is a guy that shows you when it's coming. So he's not a guy that I typically want to get out in front of, want to go early on. He has a tendency of building, showing you a little sign with the approach play. He's always usually pretty good off the tee, but he'll show you some signs with the putter, and then he pops, and he's close. And then he can play well for a while. So I don't, just as a general rule, I don't bet early on Sung Jae. I let that build. And I'm concerned with last week's performance. I was very high on him last week. It didn't go the way that I hoped. So that's unfortunate. I'm going to take a break on him this week. Tom Kim, on the other hand, I'm very willing to go back to because of the way you mentioned it. He hit the ball really well and putted very poorly. And now we're getting off of Hawaii and going to a place with, although they're still Bermuda grass greens, it's going to be a little bit of a different feel. And I think he's going to figure that out, turn it around, use last weekend to get a clear idea of what he's got to do with the putter. Because it's a great putting stroke. It's a phenomenal putting stroke. And I think it'll be a very easy fix for him. So I'm willing, able, and possibly going to, at least to some degree, go back to Tom Kim. Before I get to my favorite in this, my two favorites in this range, I just want to talk about Siwoo.
Please.
I am less eager to go to Siwoo. I know we've had this trend of back-to-back winners. Our guys have this tendency.
These narratives I'm hearing on
my
this show are just crashing and burning.
Siwoo has never made the cut the week after a win. He's won 4 times. I know they're spread out over a long period of time, but after every single win in his entire career, he's missed the cut. And this, although it's a 54-hole cut, I think it's one of the easiest cuts to miss because you have to make so many birdies just to make the cut for Sunday. And I could see Siwoo struggling a little bit. I don't think you're going to see another 8 strokes gained approaching the green, partially because 2 of the rounds aren't going to count.
That's such a sick little. That's so sick. That's true.
Yeah. So I am very I'm very confident in that one.
Could you imagine if he just snaps off 4 and 4?
That would mean he made the cut, which would be nice. But I'm willing to just write that off because this range is so strong. So I can say, all right, I'm out on Sung Jae. I want to see him build a little bit. I'm comfortable there with Siwoo. He's not going to gain 8 strokes approaching the green, so I'm very comfortable in bailing, and he's never made the cut before after a win. So I'm comfortable with that. Now, my 2 favorite plays.
Before you do that, Greg, one little nugget on Siwoo. So he won last week, obviously, gained less than a stroke putting. That was, since the start of 2020, the 7th fewest strokes gained putting by a winner.
He hit it well.
Pretty hard to do. Yeah, he hit the cover off of it. Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
you're up.
That's phenomenal. Well, there's another guy that hits the cover off of it who I really like playing here. I'm sure he's going to be popular, but I love playing Will Zalatoris. I'm very confident in what he's doing with his swing because I think he's really confident in it. I liked what I saw on the greens at the Century Tournament of Champions. I think he is a lot healthier than people think. And I think that question has really been answered, and he's figured out the pieces to the puzzle. And so I love what I saw from him. He came and tied 6th last year and lost a shot and a half putting. And I think he's a better putter this year than he was this time last year. So I have some confidence that he'll turn it around. Again, he lost a shot and a half putting in just those 2 rounds at the stadium course.
Look at the trend. I agree with you, Greg. This is a pretty good stat profile. I also think he's a lot healthier than people are giving him credit for. And he gained basically a stroke off the tee every round of the Tournament of Champions. He knocked the rust off. He was pretty sour on the second shot on Thursday and Friday, figured it out on Saturday and Sunday, putted well throughout the week. I'm with you. I actually I don't think he's opened here in Vegas yet. I'd have to check, but I saw 22-1 and I'll be all over it.
Yeah, I think there's a real chance that he can win here. I know long shots typically win, but you've seen Cantlay and Rahm has won, and a lot of big heavy hitters have been at least close. So I think I could see Will Zalatoris being very live come Sunday. One last guy I like in this range. So right now I'm willing to go back to Tom Kim. I love Zalatoris, and I really like Brian Harman as well. This is the thing. The trend has kind of gone the other way. He came in 2nd at the RSM before the break, tied 16th at the Century Tournament of Champions, tied 32nd at the Sony. But he's driving the ball really well, which when Brian Harman plays well, he drives it well. And I think there's room for improvement on the greens, which he's very capable of. So I am not worried about that at all. And he's also played great here. He's finished 3rd twice. He was tied 8th in 2021. So his last 3 starts here, tied 21st, tied 8th, and tied 3rd. So I'm a big fan of Brian Harman this week as well.
The thing is, Greg, he lost nearly 2 strokes on approach at Waialae. He's never been good at Waialae. Like that is like, I don't think that's a good spot for him, or at least he's lost strokes on approach in like his last 4 trips there. This is a much better spot for him.
Yeah, I would agree. He seems to really like it. And again, his style is perfect here. It's, you don't need to be long. There's no advantage for distance other than the advantage that always is there with distance.
Right. But that's not unique to Brian Harman. He deals with that every single week.
Right. It's a great setup for him. You can overcome a distance challenge, I guess is the better way to say that. And you got to fill it up on the greens. You got to make a lot of putts, and he can do that. He is not afraid of holding his breath when he gets well under par. So I don't worry about scoring from his perspective at all either.
I mean, before we get out of this 9K range, Sia, I mean, do we need to talk about Sam Burns? Do we need to talk about Cam Young, Aaron Wise? I mean, this is a pretty jacked tier of pricing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because those guys will go kind of under owned, because I think the conventional wisdom there, whether it's wisdom or not is a different question, but is going to be, well, it's not really the perfect course fit for those guys. Like Cameron Young comes to mind, where I think his ownership is just going to be lower than people think. But I mean, the upside is certainly there for both of those guys. Yeah. Sam Burns, I'm kind of out on, but Cameron Young makes a lot of sense, especially if he's going to be, and I don't know this for a fact, but especially if he's going to be lower owned than, let's say, Tom Kim, Sung J M, even Brian Harman, some of those guys that we've already talked about.
Makes a lot of birdies, Greg. Cam Young.
Yeah, does. I know it. And he can play well on any style. So I don't know if I buy the course fit narrative for him. It just, I didn't mention his name for that reason. It doesn't feel like a good course fit. So you don't want to, waste your 9K guy. Waste your 9K guy on Cam Young because a Zalatoris or Brian Harman looks so good. And maybe you think Siwoo is better looking than I do. Maybe you think Tom Kim is better looking than I do. There's just a lot of options, and I feel like Cam Young gets weaseled out, but he probably shouldn't.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, speaking of course fit, and it's not that I don't think Aaron Wise is a good course fit, but because of his track record here being so bad, this would be a good time to probably take a shot on an Aaron Wise that's usually really popular, but likely isn't popular this week. He's a great price. He's missed 3 cuts in a row here, but at the same time, he's certainly a different golfer now than he was the last time he missed a cut here, which was 2 years ago in 2021. So I just think that's an interesting possible ownership leverage play along with the plays we just talked about.
Okay, let's roll on the 8s. We'll do that. Then we'll find some value in the 7s and the 6s. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. All right. The $8,000 range. This is pretty good too. Taylor Montgomery, Cam Davis, Andrew Putnam at the top. You know how many Andrew B. Putnam or Andrew Ken Putnam jokes I had to deal with on Twitter last week? It was outrageous.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He's $8,700. He gained 10 strokes putting last week. Sahith Tagala, 86. Tom Hoagie, 84. KH Lee, 83. Adam Hadwin. Oh, he's pretty good here. 82. Wyndham Clark is 81. JT Poston and Taylor Pendrith round out the 8,000s at $8,000 flat. See, I'll bounce it right back to you. I was just getting caught up on all my text messages, and it seems like you've already picked the winner from this range.
I have. Yes, and you're welcome, by the way. I've actually sent, just so everybody knows, I have sent Rick and Greg 2 different optimal lineups for this week. They're definitely going to be the optimal line. The only reason I had to send 2 as opposed to 1 was because somebody might withdraw or get injured. I can't anticipate that. So we're all going to be splitting at least $33,333. To that end, I'll just go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. There's 3 guys I like here, and the first one is Tom Hoagie. At $8,400. I mean, this feels like a misprice, which means he might be a little popular here, but he sets up perfectly. Like any metric you look at that pertains to this particular course, especially Rick, and I know you have upgraded Rick Run Good to go to that opportunities.
Yeah.
Can you show us that? Because I'm sure, let's go last 36 rounds or however many rounds you want to go to.
Yeah, whatever number of rounds you want to go to, Tom Hoagie is on here. He's usually one of the top 5 in opportunities gained or plus opportunities gained.
The approach play is pristine. He is going to create a lot of great opportunities. He's got good history here as well. He just seems like an obvious fit for this course. And, part of me wishes he was priced a little higher so he wouldn't be as popular. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. He won't be super popular, but 8,400 is a pretty great price for a guy that's recent form and track record here has been really, really good. The other two guys I'll just mention real quick. KH Lee has a checkered history here, but I also think he's a different player and he's definitely a cut maker. And I don't want to just get a cut maker in the 8K range, but I also think he's a cut maker with upside. So at 8,300, I think he makes some sense. And then the final guy I'll talk about, which I'm assuming, I know Greg likes this guy pretty well, Rick, and you usually like him. It's going to be Cameron Davis at 8,800. I'm, underwhelming last week. I'm willing to go back to him. It was just a bad putter for the most part. Ball striking was absolutely great for Cameron Davis. And I think this is just, as far as course fit, I think it's just fine for Cameron Davis. So those are the three I like the most.
Drove it well, hit it really well on Thursday. Wasn't as sharp the rest of the week, but he was okay. The putter kind of let him down. He lost strokes putting every single round last week at YLI. Gonna have to clean that up in this bleeping putting contest, says John Rahm. All right, Greg. I kind of alluded to this. Like, I hated Andrew Putnam last week. He was annoying. I was going up against him in a lot of matchups. He should have missed the cut. It was over. He gained 9 strokes putting between Friday and Saturday and 10 for the week. I kind of like him this week, right? I mean, it's a putting contest. This is what he does.
Yeah. That's exactly the thing. And when we talk about Cam Davis, I'll mention this as well, but Andrew Putnam had a ceiling putt-in performance last week, as you well know, Rick. But that's not an uncommon thing for him. It's like when Patrick Cantlay has a ceiling putting week. It's not out of the blue. It's not like Kyle Stanley gained 10 strokes putting, right? It's not a random thing. This is a great putter who putted great. And that leads to gaining 10 strokes putting. But he always gains strokes putting. So I think I'm with you. Andrew Putnam is a very viable option.
Look at his history too. So I'll put a cap on that. So last 5, no worse than 34th. His last 3 is 14th, 21st, and 10th.
Yeah, and he has a good record here too. He's got a tied. His last 3 starts tied 14th, tied 21st, and tied 10th. When it was the Humana Challenge in partnership with the Clinton Foundation. That was back in 2015. He missed the cut. Ever since they changed the name, he's made the cut.
There you go.
Which is his worst finish is tied 34th. So this is definitely a comfortable spot for him. And I like that he can fill it up in a putting contest. Let me jump to Cam Davis. Now, again, Cam Davis, similar to Andrew Putnam, is a very good putter. Now, he had a poor putting performance. Andrew Putnam had a great putting performance. But when a great putter hits it really well, I think there's a real chance that they bounce back and putt better the next week. We haven't seen a string of inconsistent putting, and he has shown the ability time and time again last year to gain 3, 4 strokes putting tournament after tournament. So I'm confident enough to go in pretty heavy on Cam Davis that putter turns around this week. And I love what he's doing with the swing. I love what he did approaching the green last week. I feel very, very good about that. And then I love Tom Hoge as well. He may win the thing. The more I'm looking at Tom Hoge and I'm saying, okay, well, this is one of the best iron players on the PGA Tour who is hitting it really well with his irons. And I like that combination. I like it quite a bit. And also, he's been putting really well lately. So Tom Hoge makes a ton of sense here. I don't need to spend any more air on that because I don't want ownership to get too high. Last but not least. Last but not least in this range. You may or may not know where I'm going. I haven't talked about this in a while. But it is a man that I've once called the Desert Fox. And that is Adam Hadwin.
How would we not know that you were going to say Adam Hadwin?
I knew exactly where you were going, but I forgot you called him the Desert Fox. So even though I knew the name that was going to come out, I still I still got a nice.
Yeah, throw you off guard a little bit.
I forgot about the Desert Fox. So good.
So the Desert Fox, the Canadian Desert Fox. I don't want to do any disrespect to Johnny Miller, who's the real Desert Fox. But Adam Hadwin's played great here. In 2016, he was tied 6th. In 2017, he was 2nd. In 2018, he was tied 3rd. In 2019, he was tied 2nd. And the last 2 years, tied 32nd and tied 25th, respectively. What I'm saying is he's gotten robbed a whole bunch of times here. And it's time for Adam Hadwin to have his due. And we haven't seen him so far this year, but in his last outing, he did gain 7.62 strokes approaching the green. And I think you're going to see Adam Hadwin come out rearing and ready to go at a place that's quite comfortable for him.
The pure robbery that was a 59, right, at this event. He shot a 59, right? He didn't lip it out.
No, he shot 59. Yeah, he's in the club. Yeah. Maybe that's another. Yeah, I gotta come up with some AKAs, AKA the Desert Fox, AKA Mr. 59.
Right. Yo, Adam Hadwin low-key has a lot of great nicknames.
Yeah. We'll come up with some more.
Oh, God. That's so good. I do not remember where I was going with this. Okay, so the rest of this let me point out a couple of items. Sahith Theegala is $8,600. He's very, very hard to figure out. You kind of just have to either be in on him or out on him and say, okay, sometimes he's going to burn me or not. So last 36 rounds, his ceiling, which is, 5 strokes gained or more in a round, is the same as Patrick Cantlay's. His floor is the same as, oh boy, this is going to get ugly. Where was he? 56%. Like Ryan Moore, Adam Schenk, Bo Hostler. So that's what you're getting when you roster Sahith.
I'm wrong every time on him. So I am in the out camp, but I love watching him and I root for him, even if he's not in my lineup. I got one other guy I want to pick your brain on.
Okay.
What do you guys think about Wyndham Clark?
Oh, I thought he's been playing better. I thought you were going to say Taylor Pendrith, by the way, but Wyndham Clark's interesting.
Wyndham Clark gained strokes both on approach and off the tee in each of his last 3. His 2022 finish was great. Zozo T16, T29 at the CJ Cup. That's an elevated event, small field. T16 in Houston, T10 at the RSM Classic. That's a lot better than I would have expected, Greg.
Yeah, and the only thing about that is that recent form goes back to November. Right. So, like, Wyndham Clark usually isn't that good of an iron player. So my question is, was that did he get hot for a couple weeks? Has that worn off, or was it real? It wasn't long enough for me to say, oh, he really made a change that's worked. He's doing something different that's working better. I don't know that. But what I love about him is his ceiling on the greens. He's another one of those guys that can putt like Andrew Putnam.
Yeah, look at this.
Yeah, there it is. The RBC Canadian Open. He gains 10 strokes. You see the column if you're watching on YouTube. The approach play is a lot more red than green. Of late, it's been a little more green, but I'm worried. I'm a little worried about the break. So I love the ceiling. Maybe he's in a Sahith Theegala camp where it could be kind of up and down.
Yeah, I was going to say, Rick, there's a lot of upside here with some of these guys that are just not going to carry any ownership. And I think Wyndham Clark is one of them. By the way, 2 top 20s here over his last 4. So certainly seems like a comfortable spot for him. I think Wyndham Clark, I mean, look, Adam Hadwin's right there, JT Poston. You can just go up a little bit to, Tom Hoagie. Obviously, there's some really good ownership, like pivots in the 8K range specifically.
JT Poston has finished exactly T21 in 3 straight starts. Yeah. Has gained strokes off the tee in each one, approach on each one. Hasn't putted great, but usually putts better here. And then I'm just going to keep an eye on Taylor Pendrith. So I don't think this is a great spot for him, but we're now seeing that 2023 debut. I'm very excited about Taylor Pendrith in 2023. I just want to see what he does. I'm not expecting great things. I just want to be reminded to look at him on Sunday night.
Yeah.
Not Saturday night, Sunday night.
Big fan of Taylor Pendrith. So we'll see how he performs this week. But I think there's too much for me to get there.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be like 9 great setups for him. I don't think this is one of them.
But yeah, I tend to agree.
Yeah, I do love Taylor Pendrith. You swiped him from me in our draft a couple weeks ago, and I was not very happy about it.
I'm very excited.
Although I will say, don't confuse DFS and one and done. You can play the same guys every week that they play. So don't feel like, well, I'll play him, I'll save him. Unless you want to see some evidence.
You don't,
right?
Right. Yeah, there's nothing stopping. Trust me, there's nothing stopping you from rostering the same 6 guys every single week. I think
well, other than their schedules.
Yeah. It's horrible. $7,000 range. Interesting names. That's how I'm going to describe this. 7,900, Jason Day, Justin Rose. Goes all the way down to Bo Hostler, Ben Taylor, Danny Willett, Mark Hubbard, Nick Taylor. Nick Taylor is pretty good. And it's got names like Joel Damon, Harris English, Thomas Dietrich. There's a little bit for everyone here, Sia. So what little bit are you going to take?
So there's like 6 guys I'm considering, but I'm going to name all 6, but I'm only going to talk about 3 really quick. So let me tell you about the guys I'm not going to talk about that I kind of want you to convince me on. Emiliano Grillo.
No.
Will Gordon, who I love every week.
Yes.
Let's see. Grayson Sigg, who I think I might be out on this week. But the other 2, I want to be convinced to play. The guys I think I want to play, though, Lipsky at 7,300. I still think Lipsky, he's a really great value. I think the upside is definitely there. He's flashed with elite ball striking, specifically approach play. Putter can go cold for long stretches, but again, I think the upside is there, and I think you can live with a cold putter here. I mean, you don't want to have a cold putter here, but I think cold putters can find some magic here. The other 2 guys I like are in that low end range. It's Matthew Neesmith. I think he's a really good course fit, but he doesn't have a really good track record here. But I know he can get really hot on approach, and so I'm willing to, and he can putt every once in a while. He can putt. I'm willing to take the chance there at 7,100, and then I'm going to go right back to Russell Knox at 7,100. Kind of underwhelming last week, barely made the cut and didn't do much over the weekend, but good history here. Approach, we know just from talking about him last week, the approach play and the putting can get really hot for Russell Knox. The upside's a little limited here, but I still like Russell Knox at 7,100.
Russell Knox has gained strokes on approach, and a lot of them in like 7 of 8. No, maybe like 8 of 9. That's a pretty good stretch, pretty on brand for Russell. Just can't give up 3 off the tee. Can't do it. Cannot do it. All right, Greg. The entire 7K range is available to you. I've got a couple of names that I've got highlighted, but where do we want to start here?
All right. I wrote down 6 names as well, ironically. I'll read them first. Okay. Jason Day, Joel Damon, Thomas Dietrich, Ben Griffin, Callum Tarrant, and Grayson Sigg. So I don't think we have to go through all of them. Jason Day, I'm very curious to see. And again, at 7,900, he may get kind of squeezed out because I like, the Desert Fox so much, and I'm going to have to play him in every lineup. So he may get squeezed out just based on the way the pricing sets up. But I am very curious to see what happens with Jason Day's iron play. It was very good from July all the way through until November, and then he's taking a little break. So are we going to see that continue? That's a long enough stretch where I say yes, but I'm still curious to see what happens with him.
Hang on with Jason Day for a second.
Yeah.
Strokes gained, course rotation. So that is Pebble Beach, Farmers, and this event, the American Express, dating back to 2019. There are only, I'll say, 4 golfers with at least 24 rounds that gain more than 2 strokes per round. It's John Rahm, it's Patrick Cantlay, it's Tony Finau, and Jason Day.
Yeah. That's a cool stat. But I think a lot
probably doesn't mean anything.
No, I don't think it does this week. Because where Jason Day really makes his hay is, regardless of the course rotation, it's Pebble Beach and it's Torrey Farmers, which are both course rotation courses. So his record here is nowhere near what it is there. He has a tied 49th finish last year, where he didn't hit the ball very well at all. So willing to take a chance on it. But like I said, not my favorite. I'm really watching him because I think those next two events are primo Jason Day territory. And if we see a nice ball striking, a nice solid performance out of him this week, I think those next 2 weeks he could be, I mean, his price could go way up with a strong finish this week. So I'm a little more willing to go early on him, but we'll see. Now, Joel Damon, next on my list at 7,600. I love the way he ended last season. It was phenomenal. Tied third at Mayakoba, tied ninth in Houston, tied fifth at the RSM Classic, and he really got something straightened out. I mean, look at what happened before that. It was really bad. I mean, it was really bad for a while. And he figured it out, and it got really good. So I'm very curious to see how that pans out. When you look at his record here, it's not very good, which is why when I wrote his name down, I put a big question mark next to it because he's missed the cut 3 times here. And one of them wasn't really by much. So again, I'm somewhat hesitant on that. And I wanted to ask you, Rick, about Thomas Dietrich, because I know you were on him towards the end of last season. We have some great results from him, but as far as recent form goes on the PGA Tour, we don't have a great vantage point, but it's been pretty good.
Yeah, so there's a lot to kind of go through and digest with Thomas Dietrich. First off, the stats that we do have show that he's a very good putter, which is nice, and he is at least mostly adequate everywhere else. He had one really bad start in Spain. Outside of that, it's been really good. His season, so that starts at the Fortinet, is 5 PGA Tour events, 4 top 15s in his PGA Tour season. He just played in that Hero Cup, which was last week, the European Tour. It was Continental Europe versus, I think it was GB&I, and he was on the winning side. Now, that's where the narrative starts, Greg, because I mean, how often do we talk about the post-President's Cup boost, the post-Ryder Cup bump, right? It's like these guys get together, they have a really great week. They, in Dietrich's case, they won, and now he gets to go back and kind of take any lessons that he learned, and he was already playing well.
Right, and he's been playing well for a while.
Yeah.
So I feel like his confidence is very likely to be high. I typically don't go with part-time PGA Tour players. I'll say that.
He has a full tour card.
Yes.
He just uses it differently than everybody else does.
He uses it differently. So it feels a little, and I understand what he's doing. I'm not saying anything in a negative way at all. It just, you don't know it's harder to track the worldwide schedule rather than just a PGA Tour schedule. So I tend to stay away because I have my doubts, and experience has given those to me. But Dietrich seems to be a guy who's defied those in a way that a Rory McIlroy has done, a John Rahm has done, right? Without the wins, he has been a very good PGA Tour player while also playing on the DP World Tour. And that's a rare thing. It's a very rare thing. So I like that. I want to go to one more guy in the 7K range who I am quite fond of, and it's Callum Tarren.
Yeah.
He's 7,200. His last start was a tied second. He finished 26th the week before that. And I think that Callum Tarren is a guy with unreal upside. And I'm really excited to see what his year brings this upcoming year, because I think it could be quite good. And I think he could be a rising star on the PGA Tour.
He might win this.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. Not at all.
We've talked about this a lot, where he is just very boom or bust, but he's been booming a lot more recently. And I mean, the rate in which he gains 2 or more strokes to the field is the same as Brian Harman's. It's the same as some of these guys that you would say are objectively, I mean, it's the same as him and Taylor Montgomery. Him and Taylor Montgomery gain 2 strokes to the field at the same rate. Now, Taylor Montgomery gains 3 and 5 more frequently, but like he seems really, really close to one.
I mean, just listen. These are strokes gained total numbers. I'm just going to run down and read them. It's a little more boom or bust than I'd like, but I think he's developing into the boom more than the bust. So 11.42, 5.61, lost 8.6, lost 3.7, 0.21, 6.92, not 6.92. Then he lost 4.7, lost 5.2, gained 4.3, gained 5.6, gained 10.48, gained 6.5. And then with one event in between, he gains 10.67 at the John Deere as well. So that to me is it's win equity. And I like the trend.
I agree with you. I like the way he's playing. This could be a pretty good spot for him. A little bit of chaos might work well for Callum Tarrant. Okay, we'll go to the 6K range. Before we do that, the Corn Ferry is actually, they're on right now, right? They've been playing, oh God, I'm going to screw this up, Sunday through Wednesday, this week and next week in the Bahamas. They just suspended for darkness. Any guesses who's in the lead? Been following this? Anybody been following this?
No.
Tracking it.
But I love this schedule.
So do I.
I think it's a great idea.
So do I. Akshay is going back for more. He's going back for more.
Good for him.
Yeah, tied at the top. There's a couple guys who could catch him at the end of round 2, but he's done. Tied at the top, trying to. This is his title defense.
Yes, this is a title defense. Good for him. That's exciting news.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, real quick, I want to modify my answer because I mentioned Naismith and Knox at the low end of the 7K range, and they're fine. But have you guys seen what Ben Taylor and Ben Griffin have been doing?
Yeah, Bens are smoking hot.
The Bens are smoking hot.
I really liked.
Well, check out Ben Taylor because it's more of the same. I'm just letting you know, like these two guys are, and it's a very small sample size, but those are two guys you might want to be early on. The ball striking has been excellent, and the putting can spike too.
Here's Ben Taylor. T4 in Sony, T21 RSM, third place in Houston. Those are just his last 3. Ben Griffin's fall, I think he missed the first cut. I think he missed the cut at Fortinet. And then since then he's been dynamite.
No, he made the cut at Fortinet. He made the cut in every one.
No, he missed the cut at Fortinet. And he's made every cut after that.
He did? I got him. Oh, I'm looking at Grayson Sig. It hasn't loaded yet. Oh,
Greg, you had me scared.
Well, Grayson Sig, by the way, has made every cut since the Wyndham.
But the upside isn't there with Sig. I think that's the problem. The two Bens are finishing really well compared to Grayson Sig.
Yeah, that's a great point. I totally agree.
Don't talk about the Bens, says Dave in the chat. Also, Joseph makes a good point. Has there been a Corn Ferry title defense, a successful Corn Ferry title defense? That's got to be absurdly rare because if you win, you're very likely to graduate. And if you graduate, you're not going to go back and play an event you won.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There might have never been a Corn Ferry title defense.
Well, we'll have to look into that. I don't know that off the top of my head.
How dare you not know that?
Yeah, I know it's surprising.
$6,000 and below or above, I guess, in this case. Adam Long, past champion, 6,900. Carl Yuan, he was in that opportunities gains conversation. Kevin Yu makes more birdies than anybody. They're all $6,900 all the way down. Oh, let's see who's min price this week.
Kyle Stanley.
He actually withdrew.
No, he didn't.
Yeah,
oh, darn.
He's out. Dylan Wu is in. That was just a bit ago. John Pock, remember him? He was at the top of the college standings, Florida State guy. Nick
Wes
Watney,
Bryan.
Scott Harrington, Trevor Werbola. Wes Bryan's in the field.
Mm-hmm. Max McGreevy isn't terrible at a flat 6K.
All right, we'll start at the top and see what happens. All right, Sia. We've got some names. We've got some value. Where should we head?
I don't like this range, and I don't think you have to go into this range for this tournament. And it's partly because of how much I like the 8 and 9K range. But Troy Merritt towards the top there. I like him. Can get really hot on approach. The putter is obviously an issue for Troy Merritt, but I think he's some. I don't want to say good value, but if you're going to go into the 6K range, I think he makes sense. As we pull up the metrics here, because
you can see that he is kind of very much up and down. He made the cut at the Sony, gained 6 strokes on approach, gave most of that back around the green.
Yeah,
that's odd combination.
Very interesting losing that much in the short game with the around the green and putter. But what we see here is the spike with the putter. I mean, he'd have to have a miracle. Excuse me, a spike with the approach, a downward spike with the putter. The only other guys I even want to actually only one other guy I'm going to mention. He has decent history here. I was on him last week to my detriment. It's Lucas Glover. He was 7,000 last week. He's 6,700 this week. I liked him last week. I'm not going to just, if I have to go down here, I'm not just going to come off of him just because of a bad week. Obviously, the putter, he has a bad week with that every single week. But again, he's another guy that can get hot on approach. And because he has decent history here, I'm trying to correlate those two things. So I think at 6,700, you could do worse.
Update. Taylor Montgomery won the 2020 and 2021 Nevada Open, apparently.
How about
Lakers that? Taylor. Is that because they lumped that? They made that one big season, right?
You know what else happened to Taylor Montgomery? He finished 26th and didn't get his card.
Got it. So that a win did not guarantee he graduated.
Right. One does not. And it was close. And I think I'm going off of memory here. I think he was 26th in the playoffs as well.
I think you're right.
I think he finished one spot out in both. But hey, that extra year, I guess it did pretty well for him.
Yeah, it's like staying in school an extra year, and now you're going to be rookie of the year.
Yeah,
so
and actually getting smarter.
Yes, right, exactly. All right, Greg, the 6Ks are all yours, my friend.
All right, I got two guys that I have liked for a while, and I like their price. I like what I saw last week out of them. It's Carl Yuan and Kevin Yu. Not necessarily in that order. I actually don't really. My preference is probably more Kevin Yu. He went to Arizona State. He was a superstar there, and he played really nicely last week. He finished tied 21st, gained 3.6 with the putter, gained 4 off the tee, which he typically does. The approach play has to get cleaned up a little bit, but he's shown that potential. So with these young guys, I don't see. That the identity isn't quite made yet. And I'm a lot more comfortable going down here in the 6K range and taking a chance on a guy like this when, I don't like seeing back-to-back losing weeks in approach play. But I think Kevin Yu can kind of figure some things out because he's so young in his PGA Tour career. Carl Yuan doesn't have anything to figure out when it comes to his ball striking. It's phenomenal. And I'm very, very, very willing to go back. So these two guys, I'm kind of playing. If they're in the 6K range, I'm going to be playing them week in and week out until further notice.
I think it was Friday night. We were talking about Kevin Yu, who made 9 birdies.
No, that was Yuan.
Oh, excuse me. That was Carl Yuan making 9 birdies in obviously 18 holes. So he finished 21st in the tournament, but I think he was like 11th or 12th in fantasy scoring because it was just like, I mean, he
made 2 doubles.
Yeah. He had more fantasy points than guys who finished like T7 or something like that.
He had it was a crazy scorecard. You should go back and look at it. He had all those birdies. He had an eagle. He had 2 doubles. He had a bogey. It was, he shot 65 with 2 doubles and a bogey. Wow. It was crazy. Which is great for fantasy. So I love that upside. And I think these guys are really talented. They were 2 of my favorites coming out of Yuan more so than Kevin Yu, but 2 of my favorites coming out of the Korn Ferry Tour last year. And it's taken them a little while, but I think they're getting their feet under them. So I'm sticking with them for the time being. One more guy I want to get your thoughts on, because that's not too deep into the 6K range. They're both 6,900. Eric Van Rooyen. Now, it looks really, but really bad.
I was going to say, has anything changed since the last time I looked at this?
No, which is the reason why I bring it up. Nothing's changed because he hasn't played, right? Or did he play? Did he play?
He played the Alfred Dunhill.
Okay.
So he played in South Africa. He played in South Africa. Here's the thing.
Okay.
When you're Eric Van Rooyen,
I didn't see that.
Yeah, when you're Eric Van Rooyen and you have a PGA Tour card and you go back to South Africa to play the Open Championship and you miss the cut, that is very bad.
Yes. All right. I'm glad we looked at that because on the I don't have his international play on what I'm looking at here. I thought maybe the time off you see some correction. That is not the sign I was hoping to see. So I'll back out of that. So then let me go to one other pivot. A guy I've loved for a long time, played great last week. He's at 6,600 and could be a nice value. Aaron Badley. No, I'm out on Harris English.
I thought you were going to say Harry Hall.
No, Bads.
Aaron Badley. Yeah, he's been playing much better. T6 in Bermuda, T7 at the Sony. One missed cut in there, but that was a well-rounded finish at the Sony. He gained strokes across the board, which is something that like he's kind of flirted with recently. He's playing well enough.
He also made a change, but I think the first time we saw it was in Bermuda. I'm not sure he was on TV at the Fortinet. I'm not sure when exactly he made this change, but I know it was before Bermuda. He made a change in his setup position. He closed the stance a little bit. And so he made an alteration with his coach that I think is paying off. I think he's got some confidence. I don't think this is a flash in the pan improvement out of him. So again, I'm not saying he has win equity. I don't know if he can win this week, but at 6,600, I think there's a chance he plays pretty well.
Gentlemen, I think it's about that time. We bop on over to our strokes gained narrative lineups. This is where Sia tweets out, "Hey, send me your strokes gained narrative lineups," and then someone takes the sponsor or the location or something vaguely related to the tournament that is happening this week and creates some type of narrative around it. So do we have these somewhere? Okay. Oh, okay. Are these the only three that we have? All right.
Yeah.
TJ at Lakers Taylor. Has gone with the American Express route. What my wife would buy if she got a hold of my Amex. Sure, it's the black card, TJ. You'll be fine. A double bathroom vanity sink. CINK.
Nice.
A bouquet of roses. Justin Rose. This is good. Ramen noodles. John Rahm. The whole Barnes and Noble. Barnes capitalized. That's Eric Barnes, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Lower bowl tickets to Taylor Swift. That could be Taylor Montgomery, right?
Nick Taylor.
Taylor Moore.
The
Nick
last
Taylor?
name. The last name thing
fits for anybody, I guess. Nick Taylor, by the way, this is Nick Taylor's season. He's good here.
Yeah.
He's good at Pebble. He played well last week.
He did. He's swinging good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well,
Okay, I always get corrected at home. It's because I don't know the difference between farther and further. No, I don't know the difference between saying fewer or less. And I get in trouble at home for that all the time.
well, I'll tell you, farther and further. Farther is a measure of distance. Further is the continuation of a sentence. You want to hit the ball farther. You want to hit it farther. Little trick there. Because a lot of people mess up farther and further.
I also always say, 3 is less than 5. It's fewer than.
I don't know that one.
Well,
my wife will tell you.
Yeah, so less is when you on
Less
that
is
one, I
more?
think that's really nitpicky. But less is you use less.
Thank you. I'm clipping this. Troy, can we clip this, please?
Less is when it's not really quantifiable. If you can actually count it, then you would say fewer. But if it's like you're talking about like salt or something like in a like little salt shaker, you would say I want less salt, or you wouldn't say fewer salt.
Right. There you go. Where else can you get this type of analysis? We round out this Amex credit card lineup with a Dunkin' iced latte with cold foam. That's Tyler Duncan. Thank you very much. TJ Ryan, the fantasy bunker, says, hey, we head to the Coachella Valley this week, home to the famous Coachella Music Festival. Have you been, Sia?
I have not. By the way, this was one of 2 Coachella narrative lineups, but I only wanted to include one. We actually got like 7 or 8 strokes gained narratives, but these are the 3 this week. Send them in next week. You'll get on there for sure.
A few artists who've headlined in the past. Have these guys all headlined? Is this actually true?
Knowing Ryan, he probably did his research on this one. So I'm guessing the answer is yes.
Emiliano Loasis.
That's Oasis, I think. I actually know who they are.
I do not.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Christian Bezaden Outcast.
You know who they are.
Yes, of course. Guns and Justin Roses. Jason Ariana Grande. That's good.
All right.
Patrick Kent Lady Gaga. And AC D.C. Woo Kim.
That's great.
That's good. I actually knew all those. I didn't expect to know anybody. I knew them all. I'm happy about that.
That was pretty good. John Markowski, the GOAT, says La Quinta equals fifth in Spanish. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, that's the
Quinceañera.
derivative of five in Spanish. Yeah.
Okay. Let's play on the number 5. What in the world am I looking at? This says Stuart Sink. Cinq.
Cinco,
Oh,
I guess.
Oh, got it. E, capital V, R, V, Roman numeral.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Got it.
John. Jeez, John. I'm like, this is
This is like a test. It's a quiz.
John Rombo number 5, a little bit of Sandra in the sun. That's Mambo number 5. Right? This is outrageous. Will 5 Gordon rings, 4 calling birds, 3 French, and 2. Right? That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Kramer 5 Hickok shadow. 5 o'clock shadow.
Wow.
And Michael, New Kids on the Block, 5 baddest boy banders of all time. Oh my Lord. The rigors that I'm put through on this segment of the show.
That was tough.
Yeah, that's an exercise.
We should have them. So they should record it or come on live and have to say it themselves. Or we should have them send videos in.
That's a fun wrinkle.
Wow.
I just get stuck here saying all the crazy stuff I don't understand.
These were good though.
They're all very good. Yeah. I'm actually
we're gonna queue up a song with lyrics soon with Gigi performing. Maybe in the next few weeks we'll have a performance.
That way I can get something out of my head other than Smotherman.
Yeah,
about that.
Right. Lives rent free. All right, boys. Anything else before we get out of here? No.
That's all I got.
All right. Mega preview pod tomorrow. That's Tuesday, depending on when you're listening to this. You'll need to get your one and done selection in if you're a fan/listener by 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. There's a link in the description. Go get your pick in right now. Big thanks to producer Troy. Does all the hard work behind the scenes. Greg DuCharme, available on Twitter at @TheRealGFD. That's Nejad at Nejad. And you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.